G'day, legends, and welcome to the Pot Noodle by Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight, it's Shane. So it's just the Melbourne boys getting on here. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good mate, good. Had a bit of a packed schedule for the weekend. Got up to a few different things, but the one I'm really keen to highlight was getting out to the Highland Celtic gathering, which was in Williamstown. And thanks very much last week for plugging it in my absence. And got to get out there and experience a few things, all things Scottish, really, and even got the chance for the very first time to indulge in a bit of haggis, which I'll be honest, I enjoyed. I really enjoyed, and yeah, it was great fun, good event, good atmosphere, and good to just sort of learn a few more things and experience a few things I hadn't before.
It was funny on that, everyone, because a little looking behind the curtain. So I'm out doing some stuff, doing a bit of shopping, whatever, with the wife, and I haven't looked at my phone for like an hour or so, and then there's like 40 something messages in our WhatsApp group chat, and it's just a play-by-play of Shane with like picture of his haggis, picture of his, what was it, black pudding,
Black pudding, yep.
comments of all this other stuff between him, Johnny, and the boys. It was like I wasn't feeling hungry, and then I saw all that, and I'm just like, "Ah, oh, dude, now I want lunch." I have two. Yeah, so it was an interesting little insight there, but no, it was from what I've heard, it was a good little festival they had on down there, and yeah, try and get to it myself next year, I reckon. But yeah, glad you had a fun time. What I want to do, Shane, before we dive into the pod, is just notice the t-shirt you're wearing. Plug
Yep.
away, sir. Plug away.
Yep. So this is the t-shirt for 1 Foot Forward. So obviously, those who are tuning in would have heard throughout the previous weeks, and Jared's done a really good job of promoting it. All of us have taken on board a walking or running or fitness challenge for the month of October, which is Mental Health Month, for raising funds as part of the 1 Foot Forward program and raising funds for the Black Dog Institute and mental health awareness. And the program is really about encouraging people to get out and go for a walk and stay fit, and at the same time to raise awareness for mental health and mental health research, and to get people on board that way. So, Jared, if I can take a moment, you really are the catalyst behind all of this, and it was you that floated the idea. And we're all happy to get involved, but you really were the brains behind all of this. And I can say on a personal level, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, being able to get out and about and go for walks and try and get more people involved. But I don't like to speak on behalf of other people, but I know genuinely I can say this on behalf of everyone as part of the Celtic Down Under crew. We've been blown away by everyone's generosity, and the amount that we've raised and the awareness we've raised as part of it has just been incredible. So we've got one more day to go. I think everyone's pretty much smashed their challenges out of the park, but we've got one more day to go to try and get some more funds raised for a very good cause. But massive shout out to everyone who's gotten involved, either through donations or sharing it or liking it, and just getting involved that way to make people aware of it. We've genuinely been blown away by it all. And it's been nice to be able to do something to make a positive difference in that regard.
Yeah, it's very humbling, to be honest with you. Like, what we're doing is, the reason for it is like, yeah, mental health's a massive thing that doesn't get spoken about enough, especially in predominantly male spaces, in terms of like football or sporting groups, or even within podcast sort of stuff. And we've got some people on the pod, like Liam's openly spoken about what he went through. Myself, last year, I went through a bit of a tough time when my mum passed away. So it was yeah, things like having the podcast and having people on this show around you and family and friends just like to help pick you up and everything. It's a very important thing. And I don't really like dropping that guard and talking about my personal stuff, but yeah, it wasn't a good place. And to be where we at now, yeah, it's quite humbling to see. Like, I set a goal of $500 to raise for the Black Dog Institute by doing the 1 Foot Forward, because I had no idea. It's the first time we've done a fundraiser with the podcast, and I thought, if we make $500, that's a reasonable target. We could do that. We're about $140 off 3,000 Australian dollars, so we've pretty much smashed it in as a group. So thanks to everyone for your support. Yeah, the Celtic family is everywhere, and I'm shocked, but at the same time, shouldn't be, but I am with how well it's worked out. And I think we're going to try and make this a yearly thing for the podcast going forward. So, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for your support. Thanks to every member on the podcast who's got involved as well. And yeah, it's for a good cause. So now that's out of the way, we'll get to the football. So we'll get to the depressing stuff. Yeah. So yeah, on the weekend, yeah, we all obviously know Celtic 0, Hibs 0. So I'm going to go through the starting lineup here. So it's pretty much, Shane, the same as what we saw against Atletico Madrid. So Taylor, Scales, Carter-Vickers, Johnson, Hart and goals, McGregor, O'Reilly. The question was it going to be a Wider or Bernardo? That was pretty much the only question mark going into it. And then Palmer, Maeda with Kyogo up top. So no real changes because Bernardo came on after Hatade got hurt during the week. It's pretty much the same lineup. So my question to you, Shane, is did Rodgers get it right by going in there with the same lineup? Or as we've seen some other, you know, whether it's in Facebook groups, on Twitter, or that, was Rodgers trying to send the board a message about the lack of depth in the squad with the lack of player rotation? Tangent time, Shane, go for
it. Well, I think either way, regardless of whether you sit on whether he just made a decision purely for putting out the best 11 or whether he's trying to send a message, either way, he got it wrong. Like this, and you could tell pretty early on in that first half, we looked flat. We looked fatigued. We looked like we'd run ourselves ragged only a couple of nights earlier. And, you know, it was that time where you would have expected one or two changes, not exactly wholesale changes, but maybe one or two. I think, you know, O instead of Kyogo, maybe give Yang another chance. Or if you want to back Mikey in, you know, back him in from the start. I think to go with the same starting 11 was a mistake. Now, sure, it may have been a message to the board to say, hey, look at our lack of squad depth. We need investment. But I would hope not. I would like to think that wasn't the case because you don't really want to go down the path of potentially jeopardizing 3 points to make a point like that. And I think that's where we're sort of getting at. If you sort of get through the sort of general discussion of it, if he's making a point by playing that starting 11, we're effectively saying that he's effectively just saying, I'm going to put the same starting 11 out there who are potentially fatigued, and that may not bring 3 points back with us. I would hope that wasn't the case. I would like to think he simply put that starting 11 in thinking they were up to scratch. But as the first half wore on, they clearly weren't. And we needed some fresh legs in. And yeah, we were just flat, really. It really was the kind of performance of a team that, like I said, had run themselves ragged only a couple of nights earlier. It really needed some fresh legs, particularly up front. Our front third and middle third in particular, we looked really, really flat.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a different tangent here, Shane, but it'll tie it back in. So, yeah, you're saying, like, people are saying out there as well that was he trying to send a message? I don't think he was. But for me, I look at it on a different level. You look at the lineup that we've got, and then you look at what's on the bench. And I can't see any game changes on the bench there that if you were to rotate them into that starting lineup, even if the players are fatigued, would have at least kept the same level of play. That's where I'm not on Rodgers' back about it, because I'm quick to jump on him and not pile on, but be like, hey, Rodgers should have done this better, or he should have done that better, or whatever. I'm good like that with pretty much, doesn't matter who. I'll call a spade a spade. But looking at it here, if you've got Bernardo, McGregor, and O'Reilly in the midfield, and your only options off the bench are you put a Wider on, which is probably the only change I probably would have done in the middle of the park, or you put Turnbull on, is that going to work? I don't see that being any better. If you look at the wingers, so Palmer and Maeda, and your options out wide are Forrest, Mikey Johnson, or Yang, none of them are going to improve the team. So, okay, later on, Mikey and Forrest did make an impact when they came on. Okay, I'll give credit there where it's due. But I don't see them as being that's impact subs. There's a difference between impact sub and being a 90-minute player, the way we want to play. If we were to start them, I don't think they would have, because they haven't played a lot of football, they wouldn't have been at that level. And then you look at the strikers up the middle there, Kyogo, he looks like out on his legs, like out on his feet, he's struggling. But then we get here, so Andrew Galee's got a comment, only needs more than 5 minutes at a time to make an impact. I don't think Rogers rates him, to be honest with you. And with the Asian Cup coming up, and we're going to potentially lose O and Maeda and Kyogo, we're going to need another striker in January to come in to cover that. So, yeah, definitely something needs to happen there. But so my tangent there is I don't think it was a direct message to the board, but I do think that it does show when you dig into it that little bit deeper, like we just did, that there's a lack of depth in the squad. Now, if we go to the actual squad overall, Shane, because I've actually got the squad up on the screen. I might share that actually. So the guys watching on YouTube can see what we're looking at here. Let me get that screen up. There it is. Let's add that. Gonna just change some stuff around. Bear with us a second. Okay, so if we've got, let's just go to that one. So we've got the lineup here, as you can see. So as your goalkeeper position, Joe Hart, Morrill in goals. Look at him. Okay, look at the other options. Your defenders. Johnson, Taylor, Lagerbalke, Scales. 3 of those guys started. One is gone missing, which we'll talk about later. Phillips on the bench didn't get on. Naroski's injured. Kobayashi, who knows where he is. Carter-Vickers starts. Bernabe, who knows where he is. Ralston ends up playing a fair bit. Welsh is coming back. He's like injured. So as you can see, there's a fair bit of things like players they're not playing. You got a few injuries, a few that are just basically dropped off a cliff. So of those, 11 players, 4 of them aren't even options. So yeah, but we still had enough depth on the bench, so I'm not worried about that. But then when you get in the midfield, Turnbull, it doesn't suit Rogers' style. Home, we'll discuss that later. McCarthy, who's that again?
He's still there.
He's still, he's somehow surviving. He's got to have some nude pictures of Peter Lawwell or something, honestly. Quan, does he exist? Owada, yeah, we'll discuss that a little later. Bernardo, O'Reilly, Hatate, McGregor, and they put Jamesy in the midfield, where I think he's a winger. So then you go here to the forwards, and this is where it gets interesting. Palmer is starting well. Kyogo, same deal. Injured in Abada. Yang can't get a game. Life of him. O can't get more than 5 minutes. Tilio, yeah.
He exists. He exists. I'm telling everybody, he's real. We promise.
We've seen him. He exists.
He does
Maeda,
exist.
and then Mikey, who was just spotted on the weekend. So if you got that, and then you look at what's loaned out here, there's no game changers down here. There's only one player down here. Sorry, potentially 2 that could make a difference, but one's an absolute dickhead in Haksabanovic, and Montgomery is the other one. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at there. So if we remove that and come back to this here for a minute, and you look at it, I don't really see where Rogers is can go right now with it.
Look, I agree with your point about the squad depth and what we've got underneath not being at the same level and there being a pretty big gap there. But I mean, no disrespect to Hibs and other teams when I say this, but do we need them to be game changers or world beaters, or do we need them to simply get on the pitch and actually just play and give our first teamers a little bit of a respite, even if it's for a half, and then you bring Maeda on? For me, looking at the weekend, I think the 2 for me that I would have looked at were O up front and Yang, or potentially Jamesy if you wanted to. And I'm not really expecting to come in and do a massive job, but what I'm expecting him to do is to be serviceable. And then you've got Maeda and Kyogo getting a little bit of a break. And if you need them, okay, break glass in emergency. But if you don't, and you've got enough to get through, they get they get the full 90 off, and then they can front up midweek, which we've obviously got coming up against St Mirren. So yeah, I'm totally on board with we need to send a message to the board, and we probably need some gaps filled in terms of that quality. But I'm not sure if we couldn't have. I'm not sure that we sort of could have. What I'm trying to say, I'm not sure we needed to persist with the exact same starting 11 against Hibs. That's all.
Yep, I agree with you there, Shane. Now we've touched on it. The players, did they look leg weary to you after the midweek game against Atletico Madrid? For me, yeah, they did. We look absolutely spent towards the end of that game. Rogers only made a couple of subs in that game. I think he made 2 subs for the game, if my memory's right. And you had 5 available. And then on the weekend, you're backing it up. And yeah, we had Andrew Goulet in the comments, Palmer and Bernardo haven't the fitness to back up. Well, yeah, that's part of it as well. So yeah, it's just one for me. I'm looking at it going, I'm not making excuses, but yeah, we've got to be better.
Yeah, just looked really drained of energy. We couldn't get anything really going in that first half. Our passing and our overall movement was really sort of sluggish. And when those moments did open up where there were chances where we did win the ball back and we were able to move the ball and shift it a bit quicker, our execution was really off. So it wasn't a good performance overall, really.
Look, there were patches. Silver lining, there were patches there where, we had some good play, quick ball movement, got into positions, and then it's the final pass or the final like decision wasn't there. Like there was one where like Bernardo should have just hit it first time. Tries to dribble past someone into a goalkeeper. There was another one where we put a cross in and there was no one at the back post. But if you took a shot near post, what happens? Either the keeper saves it and it goes out for a corner, or he deflects it into the middle, and you've got a guy unmarked, basically penalty spot just to tap it in. So there's things like that were happening. But then at the same time, we did get just as lucky in that regard with them early in the second half with Boyle absolutely shanking that shot. The cross coming, was that early in the second half? Sorry, not
Yeah,
first.
that was it. That was the one where
Yeah.
Scales came out of
Yeah.
position.
Well, he wasn't. The thing is, you automatically say Scales came out of position, but if you have a look where Carter Vickers was, Scales was covering for him. Carter Vickers was
Wow,
at right back.
very cool.
So when I looked at it, I'm like, how did they get how's Scales there? And then I had to look further down the chain. I'm like, there we go. Carter Vickers is basically playing right back, so because he's covering for Ralston at that point. So yeah, it was a bit of a doozy, really. It was a flow on. We got lucky on that front as well. So yeah, it was wasn't a pretty game. Getting into the nitty gritty of it, it's just not, in my opinion, it's not really much point doing that because who wants to relive a bore draw when it was just a turgid experience? I was saying to Shane off air, like I watched the game, my notes are all over the place. My memory of the game is hopeless because it was like was a 1 a.m. kickoff or something like that in the middle of the night, and yeah, it's just not great. And then I rewatched the highlights, and I'm just like, yeah, my notes don't make any sense now. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll go around some comments, and then we'll get into our player focus. So Andrew Galea was surprised Bernardo started. He was done at 50 minutes midweek. I think that's something we touched on just before, where he's trying to get his fitness up. And then off the back of that, why isn't he playing Awada? What do you reckon, Shane?
I'm not sure, but I think he was kind of in a situation. You can't it's either Awada or Bernardo, really. It's one or the other. Now, he must have liked what he saw midweek. I look, if you're trying to play Awada and you want to play him in that midfield, it's either, if we look at the weekend, it's either Bernardo that you're replacing or it's Kelmac. Now, I think he's loath to drop Kelmac. I think he wants that experience and that leadership there. So and he's obviously not going to drop O'Reilly for the creativity and the form he's in. So you're sort of looking at going, he's got one person that's Bernardo or Wada. That's that one spot to fill. He must have liked what he saw against Atletico and said, I'm happy for him to run out the game and see what he can bring. And I think there's a player there personally. I didn't like him on the weekend, but there were so many others in a similar boat. But I reckon there's a player there. But that's why I think he didn't pick Awada, purely because he wanted to see Bernardo get another run. I don't think there's anything further to it.
I think it comes down to the simple fact that I'm trying to figure out exactly the best way to say it. You can't drop O'Reilly. McGregor's your captain. And so then you got to make a decision. O'Reilly is playing really well in the 8. McGregor's playing well in the 6. So it's the path of least resistance in terms of Bernardo. You brought him into play as a 10. Hatate's playing the 10 and he's out hurt. So it's basically like for like. And your options are either you play Turnbull in the 10 or you play Bernardo in the 10. And every time we've seen Turnbull and O'Reilly starting games together, they're just there's too much crossover of talent and the style of the game that they play. And it just never really seems to work. It's the same way Turnbull never really seemed to work when he played with Rogic. So, yeah, I just look at it and go, I think Bernardo probably makes more sense in that whole dynamic, unless you were going to push everyone up one spot and play Awada. So it's either like for like or make 3 adjustments.
Yeah, and moving, and I think if you float the idea of moving Calmac up a spot to bring a wider in under, I just see that as really unlikely. Particularly for Hibs away. But I know you don't want to go into analysis about the game. I'm a deep dive on it. I'm totally on board with that as well. But I would say that I think that game in particular, thinking back to it, I felt like we really missed Hatate's energy and his willingness to bite off a pass that not many others would be willing to do, and to try again and again. And I felt like we really missed that energy, particularly in the middle third. So it was noticeable.
Sad state of affairs when Jimmy Jagger has more legs than our midfielders in certain periods.
James Jago. I did have a wry smile when I saw him pop up. Oh, look, I'll give them a bit of a shout out. I thought Hibs defended really well. I thought they made it really difficult for us to play through. We weren't great, but particularly in the first half, I thought the way they set up defensively, they were dour, they were tight, they were compact, they did everything they needed to. And the second half, particularly early on, they looked like they were going to take the game away from us when they broke. And we got lucky, especially with that Boyle attempt. Credit to them. I know it's not ideal for perfect football watching, but they had a plan. They stuck to it, and they did well. And a few Australian boys in particular played well. Lewis Miller on the right hand side, I thought he was fantastic for them. So credit where it's due. They did a good job.
Sign up Miller, get him in as a backup,
Yep.
understudy to Johnson. I think that'd be perfect succession planning that we talk about. But B's got a comment here. We always seem to play badly at Hibs at least once every season. Why? Well, this weekend, as Shane just touched on, I'll give credit where it's due. Monty is an absolute weapon of a manager. He's good at what he does. He's organises his teams, and you can start to see the buy-in and keeping their shape even when there's pressure on them. And yeah, it was I'll give credit where it's due. Hibs deserve their point. If I was them and they conceded a late goal and got nothing from it, I'd be disappointed if I was one of their fans. Thank God I'm not, because they're a bunch of absolute knuckle draggers, some of them. But yeah, well, it's just give credit where it's due on that front. Bring up a couple other comments here. So, gone yourself with the signing of 9 new players. Where's the squad depth when Forrest, Turnbull, Mikey Johnson, and subs have been with the team for years? It's pretty confronting, isn't it?
It's scary when you put it that way, really. When you look at it that way, it's a bit frightening.
Yeah, and then we've got Andrew Goliath's killing us not having a reserve team for blokes to be in good nick if selected in the first 11. Yeah, I know that would be the dream. Can you imagine if we actually had a reserve league, and in that reserve league playing week in, week out was guys like Yang, guys like Quan, guys like Welsh getting the game. A guy like Karamoko, when he was coming through, would have been training with the first team on the bench with some minutes, but then playing week in regular football against men. That would have helped his development, bring him through. So stuff like that would have been ideal. If you have a guy like Toby Oloyemi, who we've got out on loan over in Austria at the moment, at one of our feeder clubs over there, maybe that'd be the step up for him. Rocco Vada, that'd be a perfect thing for him. So, yeah, it's just makes sense. I wish they could do it. I think O would benefit from that as well. So, Yeah, it'd be interesting. I wish they had that, to be honest with you, because that's sometimes Back to the Future right there.
Oh, it'd be really important. You know, you think about having a reserves team, you can set up a structure similar to the first team, you can set up a style, and you're learning and you're playing against, as you said, other teams, other reserve teams against men basically, but you're learning that style. You're learning so that when your step up comes to the first team, it's literally just like that. You know, you're not having to kind of learn new things and get familiar and so forth, and try and translate everything from the training pitch out on the weekend. You've had that experience. So yeah, if we could get it going, it'd be a game changer. But without it, we've kind of got to look at what we're doing at the moment, which is, well, yeah, exactly right. So
So
then we've got to
finances.
do the the loaning out of players and things like that, and then they go to clubs that might not necessarily play the system we do, and then it's all just about experience. And it's still good that they're getting the experience, but if they could do it as a reserve squad, I'd be so much better, I think, for us as a club going forward.
There's other options. If there's no reserve league, you could still have your reserve squad who play for our guys, and then just do what Brentford does. They don't have a youth thing. They've got a full-time reserve team, and they just bounce around and play against, you know, one weekend they'll play against Portsmouth's first team, or they'll play against someone else, and then they'll rotate and just play games. There's no excuse for not having games for these guys to be playing. You could easily
Mm.
rack up 25, 30 games easily just by doing that, and then still get some experience with the first team. If you play games on Tuesday night friendlies or whatever once a week, or because there's no European football, pick a night that there isn't any on, and just do that. There's no excuse for it. It can still be done. It's about a bit of forward planning and actually thinking.
Or, and you floated this idea of poor thinking outside the box. There's a couple of A-League clubs here. A couple of them might be looking for some investment and some new owners. I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but I think Central Coast Celtic has a nice ring to it. So
The Tom
um,
Roberts club.
exactly. You know what? There's a link already there. Buy a club here, have them in the A-League. Play shift. Who's going to say no to a trip to Australia and playing during Australia's summer? Well, maybe not during all the heat in the summertime, but you know what I mean. A trip to Australia playing football. What could be
Yeah,
better?
one problem, Shane. How many of these players would count as Australians or New Zealanders for now because of the thing? We're
Wow.
allowed 5 non-locals, so there goes. That's the problem.
So we're gonna. So then we expand this plan, and it becomes we've got to buy more Australian players, right? And the plans it's all taking shape.
There's a method to
Australian
his
Celtic.
madness.
No, there's never method to my madness, mate. No, definitely not.
Anaheim Ducks across the pond. European hangover is not a new thing. I think because we just gave everything in that game, we looked down on our feet. It's still 5-point lead at the top. I'm not worried. I'm not worried either. I'm just, we just want to talk through a few of the main talking points you're seeing online because, it's the easiest way to do it. Gone yourself is we play St Mirren and 2 days later we play Ross County this week, so it'll be interesting to see who plays and subs. And then we've got here James Floyd, plenty of games coming up, so we'll be rotation. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about a bit later on the pod. But yeah, we definitely need to. And RL77, my biggest criticism of Rogers is he didn't bring Beaton on at halftime. I will clap that, and sorry to anyone listening to the podcast audio version with the headphones in. That probably won't be a nice sound for you. So then we've got B saying St Mirren are better than Sevco this season. Dangerous game. What do we got here, Andrews? The club has the money to find games for these blokes. Exactly what we're saying. James Floyd, it's a joke. There's no reserve league. Gone yourself. In Oz time, we play St Mirren Thursday, 2nd November at 6:45 a.m. Then we play Ross County, 11:30 Saturday. Then Atletico Wednesday at 7. So 3 games in 6 days. It's brutal, isn't it?
Same starting 11 each time. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah. The thing is, right, I'll be honest with you. If Scales, Carter Vickers, and Hart play every single game the whole way through, I wouldn't be shocked with that at all. It's the other
No.
guys I'd like to see him rotate, a bit of rotation there. But realistically, give Carter Vickers a game off because he's not just recently back from an injury, and give Nat Phillips a game in one of the two of them. And then you've got other guys there, like see if Awada can get a game, see if Yang can get a game and let Dazen have a rest, or Jamesy or whatever. You can rotate it. 1 or 2 in, 1 or 2 out for the next couple of games just to give them a freshen up. Doubt it's gonna happen, but, there are options there. But
Definitely.
we'll jump back to, the injuries, right? So last week, Champions League, Atade did his hamstring early on in the game. So as we're talking about, Bernardo's came in. Apparently, he's gonna be out for about at least a month, is the talk for Hatade. So pretty much misses the whole of November. And then AJ copped the world's biggest falcon, I reckon,
Oh,
on the
yeah.
weekend. That was a ball to the face, I'll tell you what. To use a Liam sort of joke, because he's not here, there's a category for that on the hub. Anyway, no, but I hope Alistair Johnson's all right. And someone had to. Couldn't be a pot noodle without some sort of joke like that. So there we go. That one's for you, Liam. Send the one your way. But yeah, so looking at those guys out, it's pretty obvious. Like the midfield discussion, we already had that. What it'll be like. Johnson's out. It means Ralston's in. So those ones pretty much cover themselves. So what I want to do, Shane, is any players you want to just focus on for the way they've performed recently. Doesn't have to be about the game there. For me, I've got one in particular I want to put the spotlight on, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, so I haven't had the chance really to be effusive in my praise of Matt O'Reilly. And I hope I'm not stealing your thunder there, but
All good.
he's been tremendous. And at the start of the season, I said Hatate was the best player in Scotland. O'Reilly has overtaken him this season. He's been tremendous. His quality, his time on the ball, his forward passing, his thought process around what he's going to do, his link up play, it's all at a level. It's gone to another level this season. He's been tremendous, and even on the weekend against Hibs, I actually still thought he was probably our best player on the park. I thought he was the one that was making things happen and looking to drive on. And at one point during the commentary, they actually made note of him kind of being a little bit demonstrative with his teammates about getting the ball to him quicker, about getting the ball into his feet so they could move it. He was trying to really drive them on. So that leadership quality that has maybe always been there, but we just haven't been aware of it, is starting to really come to the fore. The better he plays, the more worried I get about losing him, of course. But should it come to that, we're going to command a handsome fee. Pardon the pun there. Handsome man, handsome fee. But he's been in tremendous form. Like, he is seriously the best player in Scotland right now, and I don't think anyone comes close. He's really the one. Yeah, please. Yeah, go for it.
One other thing about O'Reilly is he's just broken into the Danish national team, the full men's team. So that's another factor that adds dollars to his value. But on top of that, it's also the fact that you're seeing him be a leader and seeing him like demanding the ball at his feet. Being around better players at a higher standard and a higher level, whether it's Champions League or he's got to be cleaner with his touch and with his passing and all that sort of stuff, or it is as a full international for the Danish national team, there's those standards. So if he's constantly playing at that level and stepping up to the plate and doing the job consistently at Champions League level while breaking into his country's national team and being around those sort of players, it's only going to benefit him and make him a better player, which in turn gives us the benefit playing for us, whether that's on the weekend or whatever. And also, because he's got a long-term contract, as you said, it adds more dollars to his potential fee.
Absolutely. And then the other one I was going to quickly highlight, and I've already done this before, and everyone knows I'm a little bit of an unabashed fan of him, but Liam Scales continues to really, not put a foot wrong, to be honest. And he's really kind of shored up that partnership with Carter Vickers. I think that's definitely our starting centre half pairing now until one of them falls out of form. And Carter Vickers, I thought on the weekend was probably second best behind O'Reilly, to be honest, for me. There weren't many players on the park that I'd give a pass mark, but O'Reilly and Carter Vickers and Scales were probably the three, to be honest. I think they're building a nice partnership. I really do. I think there's a link between the two really growing, and I look forward to seeing it continue. And you mentioned this a countless times on a couple of the pods over the last few weeks, that ability to have that left-sided centre back, that left-footed centre back, makes a huge difference to the way we play, makes a huge difference to the distribution and getting on the front foot. So, no, I'm really happy to see them continue as a partnership.
It's the speed of the ball movement above all else. He just looks more settled. It's that one less touch. His eyes are up as he's receiving the ball, and it just seems a lot quicker. And he was the one I was going to focus on first of all, was Scales. Like,
I did steal your thunder in the end, did I?
Well, we're waxing lyrical about him in terms of he's coming in and he's doing well and all this sort of stuff, and I'm really impressed with him. But he's basically played himself into the top, where we've gone and spent how many million in the off season on centre backs? Was it 4.5 for Naroski and another 3.5 for Lagerbelke? So what's that? 8 million? And we had a guy there all along who was on loan up at Aberdeen and is our own player, and he's come in and he's doing the job. Like, that's why I was saying early on when we were talking about Lewis Miller, and I'm just like, sign him in to be AJ's backup and develop him. Like, I'm not adverse. Yes, we've got copious amounts of money sitting in the bank, but I'd rather us get 20 million, spend it on 3 first-team quality players, the Carter Vickers / Jota sort of mould to come straight in, and then go and pick the cream of the crop or guys to come in and develop from within our league as well, to develop to be that production line. Like Lewis Miller, I don't think we'd lose much with unless the other player I wanted to touch on was Johnson. And yes, he's got hurt and this concussion, but I think his last 3 or 4 games, he hasn't looked himself. I don't know whether he's carrying an injury or, he's just not quite fit enough or what's going on, but he hasn't looked himself. And having a guy there like Miller at his heels, I think would help bring his game back up a level. I think Ralston seems to have settled back into that, I'm just going to be the domestic backup role. And he's not really pushing him on. Like, you look at Johnson and go, all right, if he doesn't play well, he doesn't feel like he's going to be dropped, and it doesn't look like he'll be dropped. You're not going to drop him and have, and be putting Ralston in, are you? You haven't seen him for ages. And so that's where you need those guys nipping at the heels. It's the same with, and then on the other side with Taylor, we've got to bring in someone to start so Taylor can be that backup and be nipping at his heels and know that he can get the job done. But I've been watching the last few games of Johnson and going, he just doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem like himself. And maybe getting a concussion, getting a week off or something like that might give his body the freshen up. I know it's not ideal when the head's cloudy, but at least the body will get to relax a bit and get a few days off and everything. That might come and help him long term too.
Yeah, he looked pretty bad. Like, he obviously was down for a bit. They took him to the sidelines. He came back on, but he just didn't seem right post that hit to the head. So I don't know the latest. If it's a particularly bad one, he might not front up against Atletico until Atletico, sorry, and not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. He might miss the 2 league games. They'll sit Ralston in for that, and then he comes back fresh for Atletico away. That's how I think it'll pan out, particularly if it's quite a bad hit.
It's the best way to do it. Like, realistically, as we're saying, Ralston's our league backup. He can do the job at the league level, no problem. Like, against St Mirren and against Ross County, I don't really see it being an issue playing him there. But yeah, for the Atletico game, we need a fresh Johnston back. So I hope he recovers well from it. Next thing I want to talk about, the next players to talk on, is we've got what I'm calling the missing players in the squad. So I know I said last week, where's home? And I forgot that he was, he was out suspended for the Champions League game, but we haven't seen him the last 2 weeks in the league squad. So where's he? Where's Lagerbelke? Like, we've got those 2 young, promising players that aren't even getting onto our bench. And then the other thing I've got for you, Shane, is when do we think we'll see Yang and Awada getting some substantial playing time? I'm hoping that all four of them get on the pitch over the next 2 games in the league. What's your thoughts?
Well, you'd have to think so. With the run of the 3 games coming up, you'd have to think that they're not only going to feature in the squad, but have to get game time. Like, we joked before about seeing the same starting 11, but sure, that's not going to happen. There'll have to be some sort of squad rotation, and I'd like to see them get the opportunity. Or, BR phone home. Like, I don't know what's happened to him, but when he was previously playing, like, I really liked what I saw from him. I like when he gets on the ball, he seems to want to make things happen. He gets stuck in. He would have been someone I would have liked to have seen partner Kelmac and O'Reilly at the weekend, up at Easter Road as well. So I hope he comes in. Lagerbelk, I can kind of understand a little bit. I mean, if you've got Phillips sitting on the bench, you're probably not going to have 2 centre halves on the bench. You've got Scales and CCV doing their thing. They probably want to see if Phillips is going to show anything before January, where they will probably let him go back without putting in a bid for him. So I can kind of understand that one a little bit, without an injury to one of our starting centre halves. And, when I'd seen him before, I quite like him with the ball, but his pace is a little bit of a concern. So I'm sort of with that. With Yang and Awada, when do we see them getting substantial playing time? Either St Mirren or Ross County. That's the answer. One of those games, they will both feature, and I'd say pretty heavily. I can see Yang definitely coming in. I think Maeda gets a rest. I'd put Yang on the right, and I think Awada comes into that midfield. I think it'll be where Bernardo is. But if BR decides that he wants to give Calmac a little bit of a rest, I could see Awada slipping in there as well. So the answer to that, next 2 matches, they'll feature pretty heavily.
I go there. I lean, trying to figure what I'm going to say here. I view it a little different with the midfield thing. I don't think it'll be Bernardo. I'm thinking if Awada comes in, it'll be one of 2 things. It'll either be Ross County. We know that can be pretty physical playing them. And a couple of days later, we've got to go to Madrid to play. So do you want to give Kelmac or O'Reilly, put him in cotton wool for that game? Put some blokes out there who'll just kick lumps out of guys like Awada and I don't know, put Home in there if you want to play him in that game. Perfect. They'll give him a good kicking, but then you also get to see him play. So that's what I'm thinking. It'll probably happen in that game more than the St Mirren game because St Mirren's the better team, and yeah, doesn't matter who we're playing though. You're going to get lumps kicked out here in the middle of the park. I just realised because you've got Keanu Bacchus.
Yeah, you're going to need a few tough bodies in midfield to cop what Keanu's throwing around. So, yep.
And with Lagerbelka, there's talk that Rogers has kind of gone off him because of his lack of speed. But then the thing of the speed is it speed of foot or is it speed of thought? Because he's a bit cumbersome when he's got the ball and he's just like, he looks slow compared to the speed that Scales is playing at and the speed that the other guys are moving it on. So I'm not sure which one it is. It could be either, but yeah, that's what I've heard as well.
I mean, personally for me, it was speed by foot. I didn't mind him so much with the ball and his distro, but definitely by foot, particularly with the way that we play and we like to get numbers forward. If we give the ball away and teams hit us on the counter, and particularly if they're playing long balls over the top and he's got to turn around, and I can picture the St Johnston, I'm pretty sure it was the St Johnston game in my mind where he had to turn and just got completely done for pace, way too easy. That's a bit of a concern for me, particularly the way we play. So, yeah, that's where I lean. I didn't mind him so much with the ball, from what I remember.
He's got the case of the Jozos if you turn him around, doesn't he?
The old turning circle with a big truck.
Yep. A 3-point turn to turn around. Yep, there it is. So we're going to bring up your comment from early on as well, Andrew. So you put this in. Did anyone at Celtic catch the Adelaide game? Now, I know we sure as hell saw it. Bloody Nestori's goal, absolute insanity. And Jamie McLaren from the penalty spot for Melbourne City doesn't miss penalties very often, and our boy Joe Gauchi made him look second rate. Get him signed up. Come on, Tosh, in the scouting department, get over here. Come to Australia. Come say g'day. Go to Adelaide. Check those boys out. Get Nestor signed before Bayern Munich. Make it happen, because I know they're banging on the door. Needs to happen. Get it done.
Get him in. Get him in. I'm sorry to take pot shots at Jamie McLaren, but I'm pretty sure he touched the ball like 7 times. One was the save penalty, and the other 6 times were kicking off after Adelaide scored because they won 6-0. Sorry, Jamie.
Do you want to know something funny?
Yeah,
My older brother's a Melbourne City fan. Poor bastard. He gets in the car, drives over to Adelaide because he's like, oh, wouldn't mind doing a road trip. So he goes up via Mildura, goes there, makes a big, like, long road trip of it over a few days to get to that game, to see his team get absolutely pants 6-0.
I mean, he saw 6 goals. It's just that he didn't score any of them.
Exactly. Good on him. Anyway. So there was issues at Easter Road for the fans entering the stadium with turnstile issues. So we've seen all sorts of comments on that. So I'm just going to read off an article that we're seeing here. So Celtic have urged supporters to get in touch regarding issues with stadium access at the club's match with Hibs on Saturday. There were widespread reports on social media of confusion and queues as away fans tried to enter the South Stand at Easter Road. JP Taylor has asked people to get in touch. Now, we go, fans quickly responded to his tweet. Worst I've seen, totally down the police with 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse not letting anyone through when the turnstiles were empty. And then there's been an issue with our fans going to a bunch of away games this season. So, yeah, it's not ideal. I'm just going to get a quick message up here that I saw as well. So this is from someone who was at the game. It was absolutely ridiculous, as bad as I've ever seen, and I've seen some bad policing. The crushing was horrendous, and someone who was there, they're already bruised. Fans were climbing up the walls to get out of there, and people with kids were taking them out because it was too dangerous. So, yeah, it was pretty nasty sort of setup over there, and you'd hope that things like that wouldn't happen, but yeah. There's a lot of issues going on with away fans at games over there, whether it's numbers of tickets or whether it's access to stadiums and how fans are getting penned in and caged in or whatever. It's just crazy at the moment to see that stuff still going on in 2023.
Yeah, it's awful. Safety of the fans is paramount. People have to be, people have a right to feel safe when going to the football and be safe and to be treated in a manner which makes sure and ensures their safety. And anything that's contrary to that is a real problem. So obviously I'm talking from a very far, far away place with having not attended and not been there, but from what I've read online and some of the first-hand reports I'm reading, it's very concerning. What happened there? I know we needed you at Easter Road. Yeah, it's look, it is concerning. We've got to make sure fans are safe, and to hear the stories of the crushing, and for it to be a situation where it's too risky for kids to go in, no, not on. So look, I don't know the crux of it, of course, but people need to come together and make sure that stuff's not happening. Be safe, everybody, and and it's good to hear people. It does sound like people are looking out for each other, and that's important when things are going wrong and things like that are happening. You got to look out for your fellow supporters as well. Make sure they're looked after and nothing bad happens to them as well, and then deal with the fallout post that. So, come on, gang, let's get it right. Let's get this sorted and make sure everyone can go to the football and be safe and get out safely.
100%. So I'm just bringing up something here because pre-season we do our fearless predictions, and the next thing I just wanted to bring up was that St Johnson sacked their manager Stephen McLean. So that means that Willie and Steve Smith have now ticked their one off the list too. So there we go. We've had I think it's half the league, half everyone's picked on theirs, hit that on that point on who's been sacked. So yeah, fun times. He's gone. Well, let's see who they get in.
Oh,
So we'll
it's
talk about
bound to happen. Bound to
yeah.
happen. You know, winless and goal difference of like -12. It's coming.
So we'll talk about the St Mirren game a little bit more. We'll preview that for the weekend. So sorry, not the weekend, midweek. I don't know what day it is, to be honest with you. It's only Monday. Figure that out. So we've got we've got St Mirren on Wednesday night. Um, as we've said, will we rotate players after the weekend's result? We've pretty much touched on what we think will happen. Needs to happen. So for me, I'm going to ask you first, Shane. Where do you think the game will be won? What?
Uh, I always tend to lean towards middle third whenever I'm asked that question because I think it's so crucial. I think when we struggle there, we don't create enough in our front third to be able to benefit from it. So I think our middle third when our midfield hums, we are like no other team. And I think if we can get that right, that's where it'll be run. And you sort of look at the way they've played, they've had a decent start to the season, and they've got people, as you said, like backers in the midfield who will do a good job of disrupting and kicking lumps out of blokes and so forth. So we need to make sure we get that area right. So I think in the midfield, it's going to be a battle in the midfield. And I think if we can get on top there, which I expect us to do, I think we'll go a long way to getting the 3 points.
Yeah, I think middle of the park's important, but I actually reckon the another key area, so we don't duplicate what we're saying here, will be our press. How well we press at the back and put pressure on guys like Strain and their other fullback. If we can pin them back the way we tend to do when we're playing against Sevco and put the pressure on, have guys like Maida right up all over them or Palmer or whoever's up pressing, if we can put the pressure there and then you flow that into what you're talking about in the midfield, then it should be a um, fairly basic day at the back and have plenty of time to clear any ball, lock long balls over the top for our centre halves. So yeah, I think it'll be, if you get those two sections working well, it'll work a treat for us.
Yeah, it's a really good point about Strain. I think he got red carded, so he missed this week's match. But I'm pretty sure he's back for Wednesday. And yeah, his mo. He likes to get forward. He likes to get forward. He likes to put balls into the box. He likes to contribute, and a little bit similar to Tavernier. And so we've got to do a good job of making sure we pin him back, as you said. Otherwise, he could do some damage. So yeah, really good point.
Speaking of that, Andrew Galee's jumping onto the whole Strain convo here as well. Samirin are playing well. Strain can cause problems against Palmer and Taylor.
Hmm.
And then Mahesh is saying St Mirren very hardworking defence. If St Mirren stay more open, Celtic will walk it in. But if St Mirren sit deeper and man mark Celtic's mids, it will be tricky. That's why I was saying there, Mahesh, about getting our press working, because if we can, get the pressure on them and get them to cough the ball up, then it's not going to give them the time and they're not going to be in the positions on the field where they'll be able to sit deep and, get those two rows of four and just, keep their shape. It'll open things up. So if we can speed them up and make them play at our pace, it's going to open the game right up. If we play a slower pace, methodical game against them, it suits them more, even though I think it's our home game, isn't it? So at
Yeah,
least
I'm pretty sure it's at Puckett.
it's on the big wide open spaces. So that's a good thing too. So Shane, what's your starting lineup going to be?
I reckon I'm going to have to make an adjustment to what I thought with the Ryan Strain comments. So, obviously Taylor, Scales, Carter Vickers, and Ralston in for AJ. I don't think he gets up for this game. As said, I think your midfield we stick with Calmac. I do think Awada comes in for Bernardo, um, and I think O'Reilly stays at the top of that midfield. Now, this is where it gets interesting because penning strain back's really important, and I worry if we have someone like Palmer, maybe not tracking back as much as say Maeda does. And I know Brendan's been persisting with Maeda on the right, but I could see Maeda coming in, so I'd probably lean with. And I feel bad because he looked gassed at Easter Road, and I'd be keen to give him a break, but I could see Maeda playing. I think O plays up top against St Mirren, and Yang comes in on the right. So I've got essentially 3 changes from Easter Road, which is Awada comes into the midfield, O up top, and Yang on the right.
All right, Shane, you've gone a serious one. I'm going to go my stupid lineup. Here we go. No, I was actually going to do a lot of that, what you just said. So the only different spot was where you're bringing Yang in, I'd be having Forrest in.
Oh, yeah, fair call.
That was the only tweak I'd have. So let's go a stupid one here. Taylor needs a break. He's been playing a lot of minutes. So Bernabei's in. There it is. You heard it here first. Coming in from the cold. Apparently, someone drove past his flat the other day. They live down the road from him, and no one's seen him, or his lights haven't been on in there for ages. So who knows if he's even in the country? That's one of those, in the know comments. Good fun.
Bolingoli style.
Get him in. Yep. He's just, living in a cupboard or something now. Good fun. Anyway, yeah, so starting lineup, we'll do that. Score predictions. We've got Paul saying if we press, I can see a 3-0. That's what I was going to go with as well. 3-0. Unless we're absolutely pumping them with 3 something early, then I can see the ref just, because who's refereeing that game? Does anyone remember who it is? John Beaton. So I can see a penalty coming against us. So there you go. But I'm still going 3-0. Joe Hart's in career best form saving penalties. He saved 2 recently, so there we go. What's your score prediction, Shane?
I reckon 3-1. I reckon we might concede, unfortunately, but I think we'll still put 3 past them. So I'm saying 3-1. With Bernabei coming in, were you playing Maeda ahead of him as well?
Yep.
Okay, good. I was about to say, if you weren't playing Maeda, if you're putting Bernabei in and not having Maeda on the left and letting Strain, run full tilt, I was like, oh, jeez, that could get dangerous.
Nah, we're gonna go all out. We're gonna just go speed merchants on the left.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. All right, so gonna end the pod in a moment, but RL77's comment was Rostinho to smash in the winner. Hey, there we go. And Gone Yourself saying Scales play for Taylor. And then we've got Andrew saying play Maeda up against Strain and Yang on the right. It's pretty much what you said, Shane, isn't it?
Yep.
So there we go. And what I want to do before we end the show, I just want to just talk quickly about we're relaunching our website, celticdownunder.com. There's been a lot of stuff going on in the background. I won't get into it. It's boring stuff with trademarks and ABNs and all the stuff to set the podcast up properly, right? So had to do all that. So that's why I scaled it off for a while, but now it's back and it's going to be a one-stop shop. So we'll have links to the YouTube channel, all our social media channels. It's going to have our store that we used to have for like the print-on-demand T-shirts and the hoodies like this, which will be available. And we've got a bigger range now of different colors as well. So there's going to be Celtic Down Under T-shirts and hoodies on there. Drink bottles are available on there as well, which I'll bring up on the screen and show you in a minute. But there's also going to be some members section where we're going to have like members only merch drops. So I've got a bunch of ideas bouncing around my head on what I want to do. So it'll be like limited T-shirts, like 50 or 100 or whatever. And we're going to do stuff like that. Just for a bit of fun, mix it up a bit. I'm not trying to, make, a bunch of cash or whatever. It's just something to do really. And I put it all in one place because that's what we would have been doing anyway. So yeah, it's all going to be on there. So we'll check all that out. But what I'll do is I'm going to, that's not going to work. Bear with me a second. I was trying to load some pictures up here. Let's see if it works, which it isn't. Yeah, it's not happening for me. There we go. With me. Yeah, it's not. There we go. So I'm going to just bring up one screen only just to give you a rough idea of what it is. So what we're looking at is something like that. So you'll have green, white, dark, grey and black, and then the same for the hoodies, same logo setup. We're going to start off with all of that, and yeah, we'll go from there. But yeah, it's just some starting stuff, and yeah, just exciting stuff. So if you support the podcast, you want to get a t-shirt, appreciate anyone doing that, but no pressure. Just something to do. It's what we've always had up on the website for a long time anyway. And what we'll do then, we'll finish the pod off there. Shane, if you got a final thought for us.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick. A-League's back. So our local domestic league kicked off last weekend. We're both Victory fans. Victory have started pretty well. They won yesterday 5-3 against Newcastle, following on from a 2-0 win against Sydney. But for those who recall, we obviously had a lot of the drama last season where the head of the A-Leagues, or those who run the A-Leagues, the APL, made the decision that our showpiece game, the grand final, would be held in Sydney for the next 3 seasons, irrespective of which teams actually made it. They could have been from Brisbane, Melbourne, wherever. It didn't matter. It was in Sydney. It was, a decision that was really poorly received and put a lot of people, including myself, really, really offside with the league. They recently announced that that's been undone, that they're now changing that. So they'll have what they call a Unite round, where every team plays a league match in Sydney. But the grand final, which is tradition and what we've had for 40 plus years, now reverts to the team that's the highest place on the table hosting it. So it's a win for the good guys. It's a win for all the fans who are disenchanted, and should see a lot of people come back to the local competition. So good on the league for doing it. Could have spared a lot of the pain along the way, guys, but it's good that it's been undone. Now, let's see if we can get a lot of people who were put offside back on side and start to grow this league again.
Yep, have to agree there, Shane. Just want to quickly address some things here. James is saying you look like you got a big bong in front of you. Great, Paul. Thanks, Paul. Yeah,
No,
long
I'm not
sleeve
going to do
t-shirts.
it.
And we got one here from RL77. Celtic Down Under not catering for the kangaroo phobic fan. A kangaroo will chin you, mate. That's all I have to say. Hail. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
How?